Welcome everyone. This is the Plimpton School Committee meeting for Monday, December 16th, 2019. The video you are watching is for your informational purposes only. It is not an official record. I'm just going to make good words up each time.
Here we go.
I'm getting closer. So we've got a lot to cover tonight, and we will be done certainly before 7 or by 7 because we have another meeting to go to. But I think we'll be done that anyways. So first I'd like to welcome Mrs. McBride and Mrs. Terrace here to join. They are our heckling crowd, so thank you for that. It does make us feel all warm and fuzzy, you know, someone has come to the meeting. So next up we have minutes for November 4th.
Motion to accept the minutes from our November 4th meeting.
I would accept a motion to, just to amend my last name as a E-N, not O-N, just for posterity purposes, although probably half the records out there spell it O-N in the world, so that's no big deal. But as amended?
As amended, sir.
A second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Why am I wrong? I know we do actually have some correspondence, but we're covering that later in the agenda. Anything else besides?
I had nothing else.
Okay, so that's good. Wow, we're just right here. So new business, superintendent update.
Yes, I am sitting next to our superintendent as of February 1st, so thrilled and very pleased with the decision of the committees. And I don't know, Jason, if I'm taking your thunder, but
No, you're not at all.
Okay. We are thrilled and very pleased that Jill will be taking over the helm, and we're in the process of hiring an assistant superintendent. So.
Anything to add?
It was a process that brought the three towns together in many different ways, and lots of individuals contributed to a collective goal of making sure we had continuity in our superintendency and our region. And I appreciate everybody's hard work and dedication to that process. And I congratulate Jill on being our superintendent-elect and look forward to working with her in the future as well.
So on to unfinished business. Any updates from the playground?
There was no updates for the playground. When we met with Joe previous to our last meeting, it was literally just a few days before that meeting. And he had some work to do with filing up some blueprints. Peter and I did share with him the sentiments from our meeting on the 4th to continue forth with the proposals he made to us in the meeting, and that we had the okay to at least do it in blueprint form. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully we'll get a price and an idea of how we want to handle the financial end of it. We might have to put it out to bid, or we might want to look at entering into that Massachusetts consortium. We would do that probably through the town, not through the school itself. And we have ways that we can work through to make sure that the people who answer the bid are going to give us the product that we desire for our school and our students.
And power lines, I'm sure, are still there, considering we have
Power lines are still there, John. I did have a little bit of luck. Chief Clancy seems to have a source with Eversource. He had written me back shortly after our last meeting. Hi, Peter, I heard back. He, meaning the gentleman from Eversource, is in New Hampshire for the next couple of days. We'll come down personally to take a look. He is familiar with the setup, and he reports that there are some town-owned poles and wires going to your building. He will determine if they own the problem or if we own it. If it is on us, he will set us up with a subcontractor who can help. If it's on them, he says they will get right on it. Stand by, I will be in touch.
So when they come back and say it's on us, you can remind them that that wire was not like that before their pole broke.
Correct.
So they need to just put it back.
It's on
I
them.
don't know how else to put that, you know? I mean, I understand that we, I'm sure, own the poles once you get off of the street there, but we shouldn't have to adjust the wires when it was fine before the tree fell.
Correct.
So, and I will follow up. I haven't heard anything about that discussion we had a number of months ago about possibly looking to put the wires on the ground, but I'll follow up on that. It's separate. It's a totally separate issue. I figured we'd do that right after they fix it.
That would make sense.
Right. Okay, so standing committee reports, administrative review.
There was a meeting held a few weeks ago, I honestly cannot remember the date, and it approved 4 shared cost contracts, Christine Healy, Leslie Erickson, Melissa Farrell, and Steve Powell team, and helping us to be able to build a good budget to meet the needs of the kids, but to be as fiscally responsible as possible. So, you know, I feel wonderful leaving Jill in such good hands. So she's very blessed to have these administrators to work with. So the last thing on my agenda, it was a safety assessment. So last month, there was somebody else, important people sitting at the table right here. So they approved the contracts, and they will be going forward tomorrow evening to the joint committee for a final vote.
Okay. Negotiations, we have our first meeting set up January 30th?
The end of the month.
January 30th, and then we will go from there. Union 31, we have the meeting set up tomorrow night, and is that at 6 or 7?
7.
7 o'clock.
To accommodate people who are on the assistant superintendent interviews.
Okay. And then PAC, do we have anything for that?
So PAC sent out its annual report and also had their annual audit, and their audit was a clean finding. Compliments to their management and their fiduciary responsibilities. They have moved their headquarters from the Hatch building down to the Pilgrim Academy, and that's going to save the collaborative about $2,000 a month in rent. They had the capacity they felt within the building, so the administrative offices will be down there for the time being.
That's good. Policy. Second readings.
We do. He's really good at reading it.
I don't have my alphabet super.
Oh, you can.
I will make a motion to waive the actual reading of the policies.
I second that.
There you go.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we do anything then?
We need to accept as a second reading.
We have to accept them as a second reading, so.
Yep.
Do I just read
Yes,
all of
please.
that? Okay, so I would move that we accept as a second reading IKFBA, which is the presentation of diplomas, IMG-1, dissection and dissection alternatives, JB, which is equal education opportunities, and JLCD, administering medications to students.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Capital improvement, I don't think we have anything to cover there that we covered elsewhere. Legislative?
So the Student Success Act has been passed by both sides of the House, and the governor signed it into being. Again, this was touted as being beyond ed reform, funding what the Foundation Budget Review Commission called for several years ago, including increased funds for low-income students, ELL learners, categorizing some special ed services to get more money for our districts with high out-of-district reimbursements. Unfortunately, the way the bill came out, Plimpton will not be benefiting very much from the redefinitions. We might capture some money back within the definitions put forth under special ed and how they're looking at transportation costs potentially. The per pupil minimum increment, unfortunately, is set at the lowest number I've seen it in quite some time. And preliminary numbers coming out for FY21, they're looking at potentially just $30 per student. So if you look at that, Plimpton having about 200 students, we'd see a whopping $6,000 additional funds from the
Spend
state
it all at once.
out of the $1.7 billion promised over the next 7 years. There's no doubt that there were schools that were desperate for these funds. I would challenge anyone to walk into any of those buildings that will be receiving the funds and say they didn't deserve or need them. But unfortunately, we were left behind. We're sort of like those people in retirement who make too much to qualify for assistance, but not enough to really live a dignified lifestyle. We're caught in the middle. I will also be going down to meet with the Massachusetts congressional delegation on February 5th. I've been invited to come and speak with them about the reductions we've seen in the past few years in our Title I and Title II grants at the state level. So, see how that goes.
All right, and I do believe we had some single signature warrants.
We did on November 27th. John, thank you, came in to visit our
Thank you,
office and
John.
signed 7 warrants totaling $78,940.82.
Okay. Any update from CASA?
They did not have a meeting in December, but I did hear they voted in a new treasurer. And they do have the staff luncheon is this week.
Okay, Mr. Benito.
Thank you very much. As you can see from my principal's report, our current enrollment is 217 students, down a couple from last month. It's been an extremely busy month of December here at school. Our report cards were distributed electronically on December 9th. Huge thank you to CASA and all the parent volunteers that helped to make this year's bazaar another extraordinary event. That was December 10th and 11th. A lot of people spent a lot of time so that our students could go in and purchase items for family members and loved ones, and it was really quite interesting, and a math lesson for all. And well, it was fantastic. It was great. CASA again does a great job. Ms. Cardinal pulled off another great holiday concert on the 12th. Over the weekend, this last weekend, the Girl Scouts held their holiday craft fair, which was another huge success. We're here tonight at school committee. Holiday vacation, I'm going to post this a few different places just so that there's a lack of any confusion. We're off the 23rd to the 27th with school reopening on January 2nd. I know district to district there's been a little bit of variation from when schools are coming back, so I'm going to try to send out as many parent square messages as possible so that people aren't showing up at the doorstep and nobody's here, and everyone knows exactly, yeah, we're coming back on Thursday. It's just one of those odd years where certain districts are doing things a little bit differently, but as Amy mentioned, CASA was doing our staff luncheon. That was actually moved from tomorrow. They're going to do it on Thursday, and we're very grateful for that. It's been a great month. We had a ton of parents come in for the grade 2 Heritage Fair. We've seen a lot of parents in the building this month. The parent involvement has been terrific, and it just kind of goes to show, you know, people are very supportive of what goes on here, and we're very happy about that. Very pleased.
I do believe, based on when we last met, we just didn't have the Thanksgiving feast yet. So, I think we got before it. So that was another fantastic
Absolutely.
Event here. The amount of support from all the volunteers is really something, and really well done, including some young lady who was reading. She did a very nice job.
She did a much better job than certain adults that we know and love.
I will still never get over the applause that Officer Smith gets, and it's a testament to the amount of time he puts into our building, and I'm very thankful to him and to the Plimpton Police Department for always, the department work that we do with the police department is outstanding, and I really appreciate it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine.
Thank you. For those that have a copy of our financial, or you're viewing it, whichever method you're choosing, we're progressing very nicely through the year. There have been no unexpected events that we haven't been able to financially take care of. The other things that we're going to mention is just on page 3 of the financial, under the special education section. There is a deficit of just under $11,000 into transportation, and there was a significant change, placement change for a student. This has not changed since last month. And then if we look at tuition, there's a deficit of approximately $20,000, and that is before circuit breaker funds have been applied or used. And once circuit breaker funds are used, that deficit will be eliminated, will be a surplus. And then out of district vocational, you also have a surplus, and that's with accounting for all of the students that are attending out of district placements for vocational students right now. Are there any questions?
And so that surplus for vote, assuming everything stays as it is, we expect that to be.
Return to the town.
And is that the 30?
32,640.
I don't ever look at special ed this
Yeah.
early on in the
No,
season, but
please don't.
the vote is pretty
So,
standard.
yeah,
Okay.
unless somebody moves in.
And
It's
also to-
47 between tuition and transportation, 47,000.
We also want to be mindful of looking at the special ed stabilization fund we've set up to make sure it's being maxed out at the 2%.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a small increment.
Small increment because we haven't had to touch it yet, but important that we keep it at maxed out.
Absolutely.
In the minds of the people of town.
We've had that commitment from the Finance Committee. So, okay, good,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right, let's move right along. This thing here. All right.
Yeah.
Wait for the machine to warm up.
Yeah.
Is that light suffice? Do we want both off?
I'm fine.
I
I'm
can see.
good unless you want me to go to sleep.
Yeah, that's good.
It's that time of year.
Thank you for welcoming me back to do my annual presentation for special education programming throughout the region. Peter, I think if this works. Oh, yes, it is working. I'm good. I don't need you to be there. Well, I might for the video.
That's why I'm here, absolutely.
Thank you. So I just began the presentation with just an overview of what special education is, and as I've shared with you before, special education is specially designed instruction to help students with various disabilities anywhere from age 3 through age 22. And our focus is to try to equal the playing field for all students so that they can all access curriculum similar to their non-disabled peers. So this is a visual that I like to show just to explain what I mean in terms of equaling the playing field, because there's sometimes conversation about what is equal and what is fair. So when you see to the picture on the right here, when we have given each of the 3 students the exact same box, the exact same height, but that's not actually meeting the diverse needs of the students, because not all 3 children can actually see over the fence, even though what we've given them for an accommodation is equal and fair right across the board, right? But it's not, because the children don't have the same vantage point. So what we've shown you here in this picture is by diversifying, we can show you that the child that has 2 boxes can easily now see over the fence. So we haven't given each child the exact same accommodation. We have made it diverse so that each one gets exactly what they need. And that's just a nice visual representation of what special education seeks to do for our students with disabilities. When we come together as a team to discuss how we need to move forward to address the needs of students with disabilities, it's a team effort. And there are so many members of our team, and I just want to acknowledge who all of them are. First and foremost, we have the student, and once that student turns 14 years of age, they are officially welcomed as a member of our team. They can certainly come and be part of that team prior to turning 14, but once they turn 14, they are legally a member of our team process. We have our regular education teacher, who is the expert on content. We have our special education teacher, who is the expert on breaking down that content based on the needs of the child. We have our parents, who are the experts of their children. School representatives that can commit resources and funds for programming and services. We have community agencies. We have children that might be involved with Department of Mental Health, Department of Developmental Services. So those representatives are part of our team process. We have our child experts and our evaluation experts. People that have done the evaluations and can help to give some diagnostic input into the process. When we're asked to determine whether or not a child qualifies for an IEP, the state has given us 10 classifications for us to draw upon to determine eligibility. So the very first question that our team asks is whether or not a child has one or more of the following disabilities. That's only the first step of the process. The teams, even though this is a distant picture, but the teams go through this flow chart to determine eligibility, and you can see this tiny little chart here is exactly what I just showed you on the previous page, and that's just one small piece of the process. The rest of the process is to ask, first and foremost, does the child have the documented disability, and if so, what type? Is the student making effective progress? If they're not, is the lack of progress a result of the student's disability? Because it may or may not be linked to the disability. So if we are determining that yes, the lack of progress is a result of the disability, does the student require specially designed instruction to make effective progress in school? So those are all of the questions that the team needs to determine before they can determine whether or not a child is eligible for an IEP. I've given you a profile across the region here based on our October 1 report of students receiving special education services across the region. So you can scan across for Plimpton in particular, FY20. We currently have 53 students from the town of Plimpton that are receiving services via an IEP. And then, of course, you can see the regional total down at the bottom.
Just to clarify, that includes both students receiving within the school plus any receiving out of district
Correct.
who are Plimpton
That is
residents.
within this building, K to 6, as well as out of district. And there'll be another slide very shortly that will break that down even further for you. So the original chart that I showed you of the 10 classifications by disability, what I've done for you here is to break down the number of students. As I just said, there are 53 students within the town of Plimpton that are receiving services via an IEP. This is how the breakdown looks based on their disability classification. And then, of course, again, you can see the totals on the bottom. So this is the special education population by building. So as you were just asking, John, what are we looking at just within the brick and mortar of the Plimpton Elementary School K to 6? That number is 38. So there are 38 students within this building that are receiving services K to 6. So that puts Plimpton at approximately 16.8%. So what I've done, and you have it in your handouts, is I've given a slide, an overview of each of the 3 communities. So you can see a breakdown not only by fiscal year, but of type of placement. So for Plimpton, for example, we have an overview of the students by placement. So we have 31 students that are physically housed here, 7 of whom are in our substantially separate programs over between KE and KI. You have 12 ones in our integrated preschool program, and we currently have 3 students in our out-of-district placements. And again, I have a slide for each of the communities, and I can dive into those if you'd like, but they're in your packets for reference. So this is the out-of-district population by town, and I like to highlight this one for as long as I can. You can see here for FY20 that these numbers are going down. So for Plimpton, in FY17 we started with 6, and we're currently looking at 3. When you look at the regional totals, at FY17 we had 73. At present, like as of like today, because it changes. At present we have 48. All right, special education tuition and transportation budget. So when we're looking at these numbers here, you can see out-of-district tuitions and out-of-district transportation for the town of Plimpton are reflected here. You see an increase here and a decrease here. We had new students move in here that resulted in an increase in the out-of-district tuitions there. Thankfully, we've been able to offset some of those costs with circuit breaker. So just to remind folks what circuit breaker is, the state of Massachusetts has said, you folks, you guys can handle the first $45,792 per student. Any dollar amount above that, and the state has agreed to give us a reimbursement of just that additional percentage, okay? So this was the last foundation amount for FY19. So what I have to do is I calculate all of our out-of-district students. I come up with a total claim. I subtract the foundation amount per claim, which is the $45,792, and come up with my net claim, and that was the 112. And then based on that, I try to do a conservative 65% reimbursement because we don't know what the state is going to give us for reimbursement right out of the gate. So the reimbursement for FY19 actually was $84,730. What we do with that fund is we apply it to the out-of-district tuitions to help us offset some of those costs. So here's another example of how circuit breaker works. So this is an actual tuition for a residential student of $225,000 minus foundation, so this is the net claim. That at a given 65% is the actual impact for the town is $108,701. Any questions on how circuit breaker works?
You just have to put your logic aside, and then it makes all sorts of sense. Well, this is what you can afford, so then we'll give you 65% of the difference.
Of the difference.
Right, which isn't really what you can afford.
No, it's just straight math problem.
I know. And as you saw from the previous slide, foundation just keeps going up every year.
Of course it does.
So other ways to help offset our special education costs. One of them is our 240 grant. It's an entitlement grant. And you can see how the grant allocations have differed over the years. For Plimpton, for FY20, that allocation is just $51,345. And you can see that the total allocation for all of the communities is $972. But you can see where it's trending. So we need to be very cautious of the fact that this grant allocation is diminishing year by year. We've selected to use a good portion of this grant money to help offset the costs of the salaries of the paraprofessionals that are working directly with our special education students. Not all of it, obviously, because it's concerning that this is going down, and we want to make sure that we're not putting undue pressure on the local budgets from a salary perspective. So I'm trying to delicately balance how much we should put toward the salaries and how much we should reserve for other things such as contracted services for occupational therapy or physical therapy or any of the other needs that may come up. The other grant we have is a much smaller grant. It's our 262 grant, also an entitlement grant. This one is targeting students ages 3 through 5. And for Plimpton, you can see we had just $2,549. And this does go toward contracted services at the preschool level for our OT and PT. So I've given in the past overviews of our different substantially separate programs. We have our developmental learning center, we have our therapeutic learning center, and we have our language-based learning center. All of them are extremely successful. I've done a little chart to show you where they're located throughout the region. So for our developmental learning center that targets students with cognitive impairment, autism, intellectual impairments, we have a robust program all the way through from preschool through age 22. We have our integrated preschool program. There's a program at KE as well as KI. We have a program at the high school and middle school. And we have our brand new Pathways program. It's our second year to have the Pathways program, and it's just amazing. So I'll talk more about Pathways in a moment. We have our therapeutic learning center. We have a program at KI, we have a program at the middle school, and I continue to watch the field of students and the cohort of students to see when is the most appropriate time for me to come to you to talk about the development or expansion of this program. And the time just hasn't been right yet in terms of the population of students that can most benefit from a program such as this. It's similar to the language-based learning center. I'm watching the field very, very closely, and when the time's right, I will be asking for support for an expansion of this program to the high school level. Again, similar to the language-based, we have a program at KI and at the middle school, and I'm watching the field to see the students that are coming up from the language-based program at the middle school into the high school to assess what their needs are. And up till this point, we've been able to service them appropriately with the supports that we have in place already at the high school. So I have a little snippet to show you to talk and reinforce the importance of why we're doing what we're doing with the creation of these programs within public school settings. While they're working that out, I do have a brochure that the students in our Pathways program has put together, so I will circulate that with folks.
40 years of research tells us that there are unacceptable adult outcomes and that we're doing completely the wrong thing. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about the nationally accepted practice of segregating kids with disabilities in self-contained classes for some or most of their school day. So now why is this a problem? Well, think about when you learned how to drive. If you're like me, you started in a parking lot, went to busier streets, eventually getting your license, and at some point you could, if you wanted, fly to Europe, rent a car, drive on the opposite side of the street, all successfully, because we've practiced those skills across places and people and settings. So why on earth is it that we force people to learn in a parking lot and then expect upon graduation to not be shocked that they have to have someone paid to be with them? See, there's no magic in those classrooms. The magic is in the belonging, it's in the relationships, it's in the abundance of the communities. Nothing compares to the education that a person can receive side by side with their peers. I've worked in this business for over 25 years, and if there's one thing I know, is that the more complex a kiddo is, the more I believe to follow. If we want to truly know what success looks like, we have to understand one simple fact. We must create a new norm where we think, talk, write, and act in strength-based ways. When we focus on what a person can do, on the dreams they have, on the passions they hold, then we can know what success looks like. Meet Cooper. Cooper is one of the funniest kids I know, and he will steal your heart like nobody's business. The first time I met Cooper, he was self-contained 100% of his day in special education, and had been since kindergarten. That first day, I watched him use fake money to buy a fake slushie in a pretend Target. And if you do the math, that's an awful lot of fake slushies. Now Cooper is included 100% of his day in a general education setting with all of his 8th grade peers. The only problem that we're having now is keeping up with how much he knows. And we're doing pretty well. We're leveraging technology and making sure that we have a consistent way for him to communicate, despite the fact that he's mostly nonverbal. Every part of his day looks just like everybody else's, including if he feels like being late for class because he's hanging out with his friends. His list of friends is growing every day, which is especially important for those activities after school and on weekends where they really don't want adults around. Now meet Gage. Gage has been through more in his 12 young years of life than most of us will ever go through in ours. He has not had a full day of school since 1st grade, and he's in 7th grade now. This is a picture of when I first met Gage. He asked me 2 questions. What's your job, and what do I call you? I told him my job is to make sure you're happy at school, and you can call me anything but late for dinner. This is a picture of Gage last month, where he started in a brand new school with a team of teachers waiting inside that knew how to think of him in strength-based ways. Before now, they thought that he could only attend 15 minutes of general ed, that he only could focus for 2 minutes and 30 seconds at a time, and that he wouldn't sit down doing it. This is a picture of Gage after 4 hours of doing work in his general education classroom. It's pretty impressive. Next week, we're hoping to add a math class, which until now has been the most frustrating subject for him. He says he's ready. This is a text that I got from Gage after 3 weeks of success in his new school. He carries himself in a different way. He carries himself in a different way. He's proud of what he's doing, and he should be. Every single person in this presentation so far has had a life-changing event where someone in their life thought, talked, wrote, or acted in strength-based ways on their behalf. My whole purpose tonight was to come and connect you with this new understanding of strength-based thinking and to show you what success can truly look like. Now, what are you going to do with it? Thank you.
So hopefully the takeaway that you got from that short video clip is just speaking to the importance of having our students from our communities in our school buildings, that they have opportunities to be integrated and engaging with our students right here in the town of Plimpton. This is where we want them. This is where their education can just shine and their social emotional development can shine. So it's just very important that we continue to do the work that we've been doing to have our students really shine like they have been. And I could do my own video presentation with all of our students' pictures that would emulate the exact same picture that you've seen here. In terms of future goals and discussions, as I said earlier, I want to continue conversations about how we can expand the therapeutic learning and the language-based learning programs up to the high school when the time is right and there's an appropriate cohort for that. To review the continuum of supports that we have at all grades and to continue to expand inclusion supports, pre-K through post-secondary. To that end, Mr. Benito and I and Joy and Jill, we've been having a lot of rich conversations about how we can best support the students here in this building in Plimpton. And we've been talking about expanding the programming that is currently in place. That we were actually making a proposal in our budget presentations to add a special education teacher so we can really tailor some of the instruction that our students are getting to the very, very appropriate developmental and learning need at this particular moment in time, with this particular cohort of students. So that's something that is coming forth for consideration for Plimpton for local budget. We have our post-secondary program, again, 18 to 22. I passed around the brochure that the students put together. I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the program. They were actually acknowledged at a ceremony, I think it was early November, Joy, that they were, we have a nice citation here that I wanted to pass around, and it says Silver Lake Pathways Program for all of their work in supporting individuals with developmental disabilities transition into the community. Pass that around for everybody to see, but it was just a very nice opportunity to be recognized with our colleagues in the neighboring communities of Carver, Pembroke, Duxbury, Hanover, Marshfield, Plymouth, and Whitman-Hanson. This program is doing such an outstanding job, and all of the programs work so well together. Our students are over in Pembroke and Marshfield and Hanover, and they're integrating and working alongside the students from some of the other programs in the communities and the workforce. And it's an amazing program. I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud of the fact that the school committee and the superintendent has had the vision to allow this to move forward. It's just an outstanding program, so I thank you for the support on that. And this is a picture of the group receiving their citation, and again, a copy of the citation that's being passed around. And that's it. Any questions for me?
So Marie, you've built some specialized learning communities for our students based on the needs you've seen in the cohorts of students in the 3 towns. If we ever get to the point where one of those programs still makes sense, but we have 1 or 2 less students and it's ideal for the program, have you thought about the implications of maybe tuitioning in a student from outside of our 3 towns?
Yes.
Have we exercised that opportunity yet?
We've come pretty close. So when I've received referrals, more so for the language-based program at the middle school, that's the one program in particular that I think that we have that a lot of other local schools do not have. So it's very appealing. But for me to move forward with a referral from an outside community, I want to make sure that it is absolutely the right match for our program and for our students that are currently in that program. And I would not accept a referral from another neighboring community as much as I want to help them out for the sake of the tuition, unless it was an ideal match for the students coming in and for the students that we already have. So I actually did have a referral. We vetted it out very carefully. Our staff went to that school community, observed the student in that school setting. We had the family come in and tour our program. So this was a very detailed vetting process. And at the end of the day, I felt it just wasn't the right time or the right match for this particular student to join our program for a whole host of reasons. That's not the only example, I have a few others, but yes, we are at a point where our programs are so outstanding that we are being asked to consider other students from other communities for any of our programs that are existing.
And I also saw that we had a 50% increase in our integrated pre-K population. We went from 8 students to 12 students who are Plimpton residents. They're all there because of their educational needs, not as models and students on IEPs, correct?
Correct. The number you saw, there were students that are receiving services based on their disability per their IEP. We also have a number of students that are considered model students, and those students, their families pay tuition to attend our integrated preschool program.
But it looked like for 3 years we had 8 students from Plimpton in the integrated pre-K, and now we have 12, which I think we need to take into consideration as we get closer to the budget and we consider adding the position of another special ed teacher.
And to that point, I do believe that the pattern of the increase in the numbers coming into our preschool is going to continue to rise across all the communities from what we're seeing and feeling from the early childhood centers and early intervention services. I suspect we're going to continue to see that number.
And I think, I'm sure we'll talk more about this as we dive into the budget, but the important piece for us to remember is, well, we're doing this in order to, one, provide what's best for the student, because if we can keep the student within the building, that's generally going to be better for them, as long as we can provide them the services they need. But there's also the piece of it, because we're talking about budgets, that's a cost that we have much more control over.
Correct.
It still ends up being a cost, but with certain things, if we have to send them out of district, that those costs start climbing very quickly.
They do, and usually the costs range if it's a neighboring public school that perhaps has a program that we don't have an appropriate match for here, versus a collaborative placement versus a private placement. Usually a public school would propose a tuition range around $30,000–$35,000. The collaboratives are generally in the 50s, and then when you go to private, it could be 80 and above.
So it's definitely something that we need to think about as we do this, and also when we need to educate, should we push that forward in the budget for FinCon and Selectmen. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy holidays, everyone. So I'd like to just continue the budget discussion, and for the upcoming school committee in January, we'll present the first draft of the budget. So Jill, Marie, myself, and Pete have had a first meeting to review the Plimpton budget. Christine is working on moving forward the utilities, the staffing, where they are on the salary scales, and putting together the bus transportation. Again, we'll be going out to bid, so that's a bit of an unknown right now, but we're going to put in to the best of our knowledge where we would anticipate. So Marie mentioned that we're looking at adding another special education teacher. That is something that we will be bringing forward. We will not have that included in the budget. That will be outside of the budget because Plimpton generally asks us to bring forward a level service budget, so we'll list the amount, but it will not be included in the first draft, unless you would like me to do that. But normally what we do is in the write-up, we would put down that information and that number. That's how I've done it in all the other budgets as we go forward. But if you would prefer something else, please let me know. I fully support and believe this is the right thing to do. I believe it will be a savings to the town once we educate and help them to understand what it will mean if we aren't able to provide those services for the students within the brick and mortar of the Dennett Elementary School. And Pete has looked at a few other things that are more maintenance related. So there will be a slight increase in some of the maintenance. As you know, Pete does a great job of maintaining our building. But there have been a few things that we're having to change some maintenance contracts. The cistern, whatever that is, needs to be cleaned out. So there's a few things like that that periodically pop up. So there will be a little bit of an increase in the maintenance line item for the building. But we'll go into more detail in January. I just wanted to check in with you if there was anything else that you had that you're interested in making sure that we include.
So before we head down that path, let's go back to what we were talking about. I think from a maintenance perspective, to the extent that regular maintenance costs go up, that should be in the budget. To the
Yep.
extent we have a one-off, something we have to do every 5 or 7 years, we should put that, I think, separate
Okay.
to start with. And then that way it's not gonna show up that way we're showing in the budget the actual true increase
Okay.
to do what we normally do.
Okay.
My guess is that if we have some one-off things that need to be done, we would probably want to handle those within a special town meeting, using that, offsetting funds that we might be returning in order to deal with maintenance to that
Okay. extent,
and be able to deal with them. Again, if it's something that every year we have to do it, that should just be added to the budget, because we've got
Okay.
to take care of what we have. And then for the proposal for any additional teachers, so for the first draft, it would sit out, but we would build that into
Yes,
the draft
correct.
following that, but that way we can just look at it clean
Exactly.
and knowing that that's coming, and then we
Right.
would add that in.
That's
So
that's
it
how
would be-
we've done
It would be voted, it would be
previously.
voted, in the end, it ends up being voted as part of the overall
Correct.
budget.
Correct.
All right.
So as part of the budget building process, as you know, we had Melissa Farrell come in, and so she's done some presentations, and she's given us some numbers for the curriculum materials. Marie just gave a presentation on special education, to let you know how those numbers work. And Steve Pello is here, and he's going to give you a presentation on technology. And I've often used this, and Jill, I'm sure, will come up with her own story. But building a budget is like a puzzle, and it's getting all those pieces and helping you to understand what makes up the budget, because there truly are a tremendous number of pieces. And they all have to fit together and to come up with a number that is fiscally responsible, but meets the needs of our children here in this building, and maintains the building. So that's a process that, we have designed, and again, it has worked, I believe. Pete's done a great job in his budget building of maintaining the budget, and I've really appreciated working with him and Marie and Steve and Melissa and Jill and Christine to make all these numbers work. So we'll have the numbers for you, whatever that date is, towards the end of January. for the next meeting, and we'll continue to sort of work through and finesse. The one thing I did want to let you know is I'm very sad to announce that we have a retirement of a teacher here at Dennett. So I have received an official letter. So we have a long-term teacher who will be retiring at the end of this school year. She has been a personal favorite of mine to work with. I don't mean to have favorites, but I do have some. And so Donna Rosmini has publicly announced her retirement. So she has not aged a day in the 14 years I've known her. I really wish she could just anything. She looks absolutely amazing. If you look at a
20
picture,
kids push her over the edge?
yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you look at a picture of me 14 years ago and now, man, it shows, not Donna. Donna's phenomenal. So she has always been an absolute treasure to work with, and also as chair of the Plimpton Teachers Association. I have treasured working with her. She's fantastic. So we will be losing Donna at the end of this year. So it is a huge loss for the building, but it will provide some cost savings for us. So we'll be able to build in that cost savings, which we're still working our way through what that number will be, but somewhere in the 25,000 range. So that will be a huge help to helping offset the potential of a new teacher.
So were there other items you wanted administration to focus on?
Okay. I did want to let you know that the rural aid grant that I mentioned last month, it was for $10,324. So I received this lovely email that what we were going to do with the grant was due in 2 days. Which is a classic, right in the middle of budget season. Wasn't a problem at all, really, it was good. So I said to Jill, welcome. How would you like to move forward with this? So what, the process of the conversation with Jill, we worked together, and what we came up with the idea was to call Melissa, which was a great solution for us, because what became clear when we looked at the requirements of the grant was that what we had thought might work as a use for the grant was not an option. They were very clear that it had to be something in terms of using regional efficiencies. So it wasn't as clear in the original letter that we got. If you remember, it was gray at best. It became very clear when they expected to write up on how it was going to improve regional efficiency. So Melissa came up with, somehow I ended up with the wrong side of this. But anyway, so she basically filled out the narrative which was required, and we're going to be using it to support some of our professional staffs working together for teacher quality and some of her initiatives that she has done and been trying to fund through Title I. So she came up with 3 different areas, and this is not the full page of it. Somehow I lost the backside. Do you remember what the whole 4 were?
So, working with teachers on writing, I recall. We talked about EL students across the district.
Yep.
And to work together to try to promote that kind of support, especially in low incidence districts. And we had, there was a third one.
I'm just trying to developing curriculum,
Oh, yes. So we had talked about the understanding by design and working across the district. So the key here for us was making sure that the work, although the money would be going to Dennett, it's the way in which teachers in Dennett are going to be working with teachers across the district. So we wanted commonalities with the social emotional learning task force and potentially looking at programming that would be common across all schools, and taking a look at materials to create that common curriculum. And then there was understanding by design, specifically with science, because it is not a current program that we have, and making sure that we're aligning our curriculum not just here in Dennett Elementary but across all the schools. And then the writing program that she's working on with the elementary schools already, that she had included Dennett in, but that there wasn't funding for that, and using the money for that reason as well. And then finally, English language learners. So there was a lot of things that the schools could work together on, but the money would go obviously to benefit specifically the teachers of the Dennett Elementary School. And we were able to satisfy the intention and the rules surrounding the grant and benefit our teachers, which we had spoken in that meeting, how it would be nice to kind of offset some of those needs that we're worried about with Title I and Title IIA to meet our goals.
So Melissa successfully put that in. We are happy to receive the money because we've been sort of helping Dennett to participate without the financial support that was making it a little bit more difficult. So this has worked out really well. So you may remember, probably last year, we signed on to a petition to support the Massachusetts Rural Schools Coalition. I believe at that time had mentioned I have not personally been able to make a meeting because the meetings are all the way on the other side of Massachusetts, and I have not figured out where the time store is to buy the extra time to take a day and go drive out there. But I do follow it, and we've tried to participate remotely. Because of the coalition, we successfully did receive that $10,000. I mean, that is at least a strong part to the advocacy that they have put forward. So now that I guess they have been successful, I guess is probably the best way of saying it politically correctly, they are looking to establish and send a letter, which I forwarded to John and Jason as chair and vice chair, to establish a Massachusetts Rural Schools Coalition, and that there is a very small invoice and dues to pay and to participate in. I don't know that it necessarily changes anything to pay the dues. It just supports the advocacy that they are pulling together for all the Massachusetts rural schools. The dues are for $250, and the question is whether or not Plimpton would like to add this into our budget. It is a very small amount. There are many different programs that we belong to. Massachusetts, excuse me, I cannot speak, Association of School Committees, that's an annual fee that we pay for. There are other groups that ask us for money. We don't belong to a lot of them. For instance, MARS, which is the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. Silver Lake does not belong to it. That's like a $900 a year. We've never belonged to it. We still reap some of their advocacy benefits, but you always feel a little bad not participating financially to help support it. So I just wondered if you would like us to include this going forward. Again, it's not a large amount, it's just a question of whether or not you wish to participate in it.
Thoughts?
What's the chance that the rural grant aid that we received is going to be a recurring grant?
It's a 3-year.
It's
So there's 3 installments, if I'm remembering correctly, when we looked at the grant. I'm under the impression that it will come in 3 installments for 3 years. Whether or not that continues to exist after that was not clear to me from anything that I read.
So 3 installments of about $3,500 per year, or the $10,000
It's
per year?
$10,000 a year, or
For 3
$10,000 for this year.
Right.
We don't know what the other 2 installments will be. But the way Christina and I read it, I believe Jill, was that it's $10,000 a year.
So the superintendent who started this out in the Berkshires,
Boone Cotty?
yeah,
Conti?
I followed some of his work too, and he seems to be a very honorable person who's doing this for all of the best of intentions, and most likely has put up some personal time and capital just to get the ball rolling. I know in Western Massachusetts, this group is looked at in a very high light.
Exactly.
And it's a well-respected group, and they desperately need this organization. I'm all for building coalitions, and we're gonna need them more in the future than a lot of people might realize. We're not locking ourselves into a long-term commitment. I say that we make a good faith effort to continue with this, at least in the 3 years that we're receiving the grant, and in 3 years, we can maybe look back and see if the advocacy is going to continue to bear fruit for Plimpton.
Right. I think the amount is reasonable for what we have gotten as a benefit for it, and reasonable to test that out.
Sure.
I think it's, I agree with you, Jason. It's just, it makes sense to be supportive, and then but keep our eye on it, and
Mhm.
not let it sort of just become part of the budget if we're not getting anything for it.
Would you be interested in taking a vote on that, or is this conversation enough for you?
It's up to you if you want us to.
It's,
vote, we can-
I'm fine
I
to
think
just
it's
add
fine.
it, I just,
Yeah, I
just
think
asking.
it's been noted. and-
Yep, perfect. Okay, perfect, thank you. Another thing that we have is a substitute pay increase. So you may remember last year we increased from $75 to $85. The reason was the increase in minimum wage. So the minimum wage is going up, I know it's awful, is going up 75 cents a year, and by 2023, it will be $15 an hour. And if you figure out the cost of our subs, if you figure 7 times 15 is 105, if we don't continue to increase our substitute pay, we will be below minimum wage. Again, currently, we are paying $85. So I would like to make a recommendation that we increase our rate of pay for our daily subs to $95. That will put us, actually, believe it or not, a little bit higher than our immediate area for right now. Everybody's sort of moving and increasing because everybody's struggling to find subs. I can't imagine why, because we pay so well and it's such an easy job. I'm sorry, I'm a little late. So I would like to recommend, and again, I'm sort of doing it in a slow progression, so budgetarily, it doesn't have a massive impact
Right.
immediately. So as of January 1, I can see Jason's getting ready to say something more, maybe more. But the other schools, again, this does have a budgetary impact. If we do it again in January, which we did last year, the word spreads rapidly when we do this, is sort of in my experience. We've already sort of had some conversations about the budgetary impact. I believe we can accommodate the $10 this year to go from 85 to 95. The other area is our nurses. Our nurses, you have to be a registered nurse to substitute for a nurse. You can't be an LPN, you can't just be a person who's got a little background in having cared for an elderly parent or whatever it may be. You have to be an RM. We currently pay $125 a day for our nurses. Needless to say, RNs make a lot more money than that. So I'd like to increase that rate to $175. We very rarely need substitute nurses. Our nurses are very good about not getting sick because they know we can't fill in for them. So those are two things that I would like to move for January 1, starting the new fiscal year. I have already brought this forward to the other towns. I don't believe I technically need a vote to support it, but the other towns have been supportive of the concept of trying to move a little bit closer to reasonable wages.
How often have we had to use an agency for nursing?
In Plimpton, never.
Never. And what is an agency fee typically?
$340, I think.
$340 and up per
$340
day.
and up.
Up until this year. We have had to dip into that twice this year.
Okay.
So I understand the progressive nature
Mhm.
of coming to us and asking us to meet the
Mhm.
incremental increases with the state. But we're being so close to the $15 an hour at this point and trying to attract the highest quality substitute teachers for our town and our students. I'd like us to consider just going straight ahead to the 105 this year and seeing what it does for our ability to retain and get subs in a timely manner and pay a decent wage to the people who are taking care of our precious little ones.
So we've already brought this forward in Kingston
Would
and
this-
Halifax and
would this
Silver Lake.
mess up the monkey train?
Possibly.
Kind of fun.
Again, what we could do is move it up as of January 1, which is what I've already voted. Or, I don't know, well, actually, most of the school
Your
committees did
proposal,
vote.
right?
Yeah, is we could add it for September to go up an additional amount in next year's budget, if you wish. You know, we could just.
That's a nice compromise.
I'm all about compromise. I like to walk that middle line of the fence.
And what's the current substitute budget?
In Dennett.
The dollars,
Yeah.
this year's budget was $43,251.
And we're currently.
We have spent $6,239 so far.
So, again, as you probably realize, a lot depends on what is going on in teachers' lives. If we have a teacher who is out on maternity leave, for instance, that teacher will, her salary would be, once she is out of her sick time for the 8 weeks, if she takes the full year off, for instance, her salary then isn't taken out of the teaching line, it is just a substitute. So it really varies wildly.
But the daily substitute rate only applies to how many consecutive days of sub?
21.
Right, and
First
then it
21
becomes bachelor's.
Step one.
Step one, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, we're only talking really about the incidental sick days of normal
personal
health and
days.
little procedures and things,
Yep,
but
yep.
not the long-term implication of a long-term sub.
Right, just the, yep, for 21 days.
And even if you have someone out 21 days, isn't it better to have a good sub in there
Absolutely.
than
Absolutely.
cobbling
Right.
it together
Yep.
day after day with different people?
Usually what we try to do is when we have someone that we know is going to be a long-term sub, we try to make sure that people understand and they can get a commitment if they know there's going to be a pretty heavy increase. If it started off that first 21 days wasn't so low, I'm sure it would make it even more appealing. So, you know, I am not opposed. I would be more than happy to make it higher. You know, I hope you understand that. I'm really just working within the budget constraints is all I'm trying to do. You know, again, the impact on Dennett is very different than the impact on Silver Lake. You know, when we have 164 staff members,
So
it's
the-
a bit different.
So the proposal on the table is to go up January 1st to
Yep.
95 and 175
Correct.
for the nurse. And the belief is we can absorb that within the existing
Correct.
budget. I think that's the better way to do it, and then look to the next fiscal year to get where we should be. And
September
then
one.
we also give the opportunity for FinCom to weigh in on that as well.
Okay.
Thank you. So, we have with us tonight Steve Pello, our technology director, and he is going to talk a little bit about the impact of his area of expertise on the budget.
Thank you. So before I start on the budget, I just wanted to real quickly give you an overview of the technology department as a whole. And when I say as a whole, I speak of it as a K-12 department because most of us are K-12. We have 5 people in the tech department, myself as tech director, Jim McKendy is our network administrator, and then we have 3 full-time technicians. And that's broken up with 1.6 tech at Silver Lake, 1 at Kingston, and then a 0.2 at Halifax and a 0.2 here in London. As you probably are aware, technology has become very pervasive throughout our buildings. It's far more than just the device in front of the student or the computer at the teacher's desktop or the projector. We have technology controlling our HVAC system. Our gas meters report the usage through our technology. We have cameras, we have our phone systems. We have students with medical devices on our network so the nurse can monitor them. So overall, we manage as a tech department well over 7,000 individual devices. I like to think of us as small but mighty. And that's not a request for another tech, that's just giving you
Although he wouldn't turn it down.
I would not turn it down, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of where we are coming from. We did, with the help of the budget process, manage to bring in some summer help this past year. And that was a huge asset to us because we were able to have them go through all the Chromebooks and get them cleaned up and ready for the school year, go through all the computers and manage that. And that we managed to do, weekend in all buildings. We had someone in here over the summer. Not full-time, we broke them up, but it worked out very well. As far as budget impact, we did, again, as every year, file for our E-rate reimbursement. This year, Dennett is in just under $12,000 in E-rate reimbursement money. And that comes directly off the top of our bills, so when we file for our internet service, and I'm just pulling a number out of the hat, we were going to spend $18,000 a year on internet. E-rate pays a little over $9,000 of that, and that comes right off the top of the bill. It's not like they hand us a check. It's, I said, okay, if you're being charged 18, we're giving them 8, 9, you pay.
Steve, is there any prognostication on E-rate going forward? I know there was, a
Um,
couple of years ago, we got nervous it might be dropping down, but it seems to
Yes,
stabilize.
over the last couple of weeks, we have heard some, what appears to be good news. This current year, which we're well behind because the federal government has not yet given us the dates, we can actually have our 470 ones filed, I think it is. But we're hoping to see that in early January. However, this year they said, I'm backing up. I'm going to give you a quick, all you ever wanted or never wanted to know about E-rate. E-rate runs in a 5-year cycle. They give us, it was approximately $165 of E-rate funding per student over the 5 years. So, and that's to spend, you can spend it all in 1 year or spread it over the 5 years, and that's for the non-internet piece of it. The internet piece is separate. Category 2 funding is what we use to pay for our hardware, such as network switches, access points for our internet, and the licensing for our internet service, our Wi-Fi service, our lives, as well as licensing for our firewall, things like that. This particular year, because the 5-year cycle ended this year, in our current fiscal year, next fiscal year they're giving us 1/5 of what we would have gotten for 1 year of the 5 years.
So they're
Plus,
prorating you for a
They're
year?
prorating us for a year plus an extra, I think they've, something like 4-point-something% for inflation. And those numbers, I definitely can tell you they are not exact, it's approximates. Starting after next year, it begins a new 5-year cycle, which it looks like they have committed to following through on.
That's great news.
They're looking at giving a little more flexibility. They haven't announced it yet, but the implication is they may be opening it up to allowing usages other than what they currently allow.
I appreciate you dive into the weeds for me. Thank you.
I'm actually going to an E-rate seminar on January 10th. It's bound to be a laugh a minute. But I will have a lot more information.
Great.
So, we have, as I said, we are seeing just under 12,000 at Dennett this year for reimbursements. If you take a look at the handout, it shows the technology budgets in all its pretty colors. There are some changes on this from last year, not a lot that show up immediately, but we are coming in, I think, $270 over last year's technology request. We are adding a new program called Archive Social, because every electronic email that we send out has to be archived, and it's been ruled that even social media posts are now archived for 7 years. So we can know what exactly went on here 7 years now. Overall, we are looking at trying to get some more iPads and Chromebooks in, because we have some of those devices going end of life this year. So we're trying to not so much increase what we have, but maintain what we have. We just actually got in a Chromebook card because the kindergarten classes asked if they could start having access to the Chromebooks, which I think is awesome. So we're doing one card of 21 devices so they can share it between the two rooms. I have a feeling that once they get going with that, it may be another card. But, I'm excited that they're interested in making inroads into that. We're also looking this year at replacing the document cameras, which they were old when I got here. So, not old, but at least a year old. So, now they're 8 years older.
Are we considering continuing to use that kind of technology, Steve, or do you have different ideas other than a document camera?
Right now, the document camera seems to work very well for what teachers are doing. We could certainly start looking at using iPads, but then you get into tripod mounts for them. You can do phones, but then having to provide phones or they use their own. So right now, having that piece of technology fixed that's fairly easy to use, that every teacher knows how to use, so if there's a sub in, the next door neighbor can come over and say, this is what we have to do, or this is how you do it. So it's worked out very well. So overall, as I said, we're up about $270. So not a huge deal. Any other questions?
Wait, your overall budget from last year to this year is up $270, Steve?
Yes. I know, I'm sorry, I tried to keep it low. But we did have some big projects over the last couple of years that, now that those are done, we're looking at continuing on with what we need to do, but we try not to ask for more than we need.
It's amazing what you've done with the amount of money you've asked us for the years you've been here. John and I always remark, when we first came on the committee, we were trying to build enough capacity just in this one room to test a couple classrooms at a time. And now we're at the point that we can let the students stay in their own classroom and test on a one-to-one device. We were so focused on the technology for the testing that we almost lost sight of the technology for the instructional and world implications to their lives, But you really helped make that a reality here. We appreciate all your hard work. The budget number is ridiculous, but in a great and welcome way.
But I think it also speaks to how you're doing your budget, in that it's not, oh, what do we need to replace now? It's, there's going to be a certain amount of replacing as you're going, and you've built that into the budget so that we can continue to maintain as we're going. And yeah, we're going to have projects that come up here and there. And I remember if we go back, I think probably right before you came, we replaced a bunch of computers here. And that was an enormous hit.
Huge.
And yet, we sat here and said, we are not going to test online if we can't test them in the classroom. And within a year and a half, we were testing in the classrooms.
Yep.
Because, and it wasn't just about having the Chromebooks, it's about the network, it's about all of the stuff behind the scenes. And it has made it, it has nothing to do with us just being pig-headed about it. It's all to do with the technology we're able to put in here without building it into the budget, without it being a big hit. So that's fantastic. So.
And this is the difference when you have someone who's doing technology for education than when you have an educator who understands technology. And that's what Steve really brings to the job. He's educated-minded first. He's a natural teacher, and he just has a great gift for technology to boot.
So thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pete, I know you have a special office.
Yes,
true. That's very true.
Yeah, Pete's no dummy. As you said, Steve and Marie have both done an exceptional job of being a part of our admin. You asked me to pursue getting a safety assessment for Dennett. So I reached out to Matt Clancy, our new interim police chief, who I've known for years and is a fantastic guy. And he is working with us to do a safety assessment of Dennett. So I wanted to let you know, Pete's been filling out some paperwork that he requested, and then he is going to schedule a walkthrough that I don't believe we have a date yet
Not yet.
to do. But hopefully we'll get that to you, hopefully I will be able to get that done, prior to my exit. I'm not positive if we will have numbers for any recommendations for the first draft of the budget. It may wait until the second draft, and I'm not sure how much, what the immediate impacts may be, in terms of it. But I did wanna let you know it is in process, and, we're working as quickly as we can. We just need to find, that time store, which I just can't get a hold of quite yet, but I will. So,
Pretty soon, Joe.
Pretty soon.
So
So,
the chief will have that information. That was a 19-page document, which
Okay.
was very thorough.
Okay.
He'll have that tomorrow.
oh, excellent.
Thank you, Pete.
That's all I had, thank you.
One thing that I was thinking about as we were talking through all the stuff and the budgets, I think we talked about it before too, is that I think it would do well for us to put together a simple chart documenting all of the different grants and state funds that have received to show, be able to have in one spot a nice clarity about what else is being done to help create this each year, you know, so that when we're sitting with FinCom, that it's something that they can see, you know, and even the $10,000 grant for the rural schools. I mean, that wasn't there last year.
Right.
We were able to get that. We get certain amounts of that. You know, I'm just trying to think of visual ways to be able to show some of the impacts. Some of that may even be, you know, like the downward trends that we're seeing for the various grants and reimbursements that we get, so that they understand better in a simple snapshot of what that is, because otherwise, because everything's all over. You know, you have some with special ed, you have some for continuing ed, you have some over here and some over there, and I'd like to just be able to see that, even if it's just a couple of years of that, and then also be able to highlight some of the grants that we are able to get, whether it's for the curriculum work and whatever.
So in May, we always put together a document, so
Yeah.
what we could try to do is to maybe move that forward so you have it for now, where, you know, Christine is raising her eyebrows, so whenever she does that move.
How about this though? Why don't we go and take that document and take it from a couple of years that's already done
Yep,
and put that into a clear thing, and then note some additional things
Sure.
that we have received this year, like that $10,000 grant or anything else
she's
that's
got it, don't worry.
that's one-offs that we already have in the current year. I want to be able to give that picture, because we're going to be asking for stuff this year.
She's learning to laugh, not cry, by the way. She's doing really, really
It's a good
well.
lesson.
Look at that smile. She's got this.
And I don't want to create a lot of work out of it,
Mhm.
but I think it's going to create less work for us
Okay, sure.
in being able to, because no matter whether we have various offsets here, we're going to be asking for money that is above what we have asked for in the last few years.
There will be an increase, I think, in some areas.
So I want to be able to show why we're doing that. I want to ground that discussion.
Okay. We will do our best to put that together.
Okay. I'm not trying to just create work.
It's all good. It's a very valid request.
Yeah,
And we will make it work.
And so if we already have this, let's
Right,
go back
yep.
and look and do that.
Sure. I'm sure we can pull
I
that
think
apart
that's
somehow.
important. Anything else?
Can you just pass on thanks to everybody in the building, especially for these last 4 days? We know how hectic it can get. We appreciate everything you guys do every day for our kids, and we hope you enjoy your vacation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nothing else, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
A second.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
Happy holiday.